Now let us meet our psychologist.
Number one, what is your name, please?
My name is Warren Farrell.
Number two.
My name is Warren Farrell.
Number three.
My name is Warren Farrell.
And here is Warren Farrell's manifesto of the male mystique. I, Warren Farrell, am a sociologist. My book, it says show book. I'm going to do that as soon as I can find the book. There it is. In my book, titled The Liberated Man, I make it clear that the American man of today is emotionally bankrupt. Young boys, in fact, are consciously and unconsciously pressured to withhold emotion. In order to have a fulfilling male-female relationship, a man must place heavy importance on internal human rewards. He should accept the fact that he is vulnerable and not waste time constructing facades of infallibility. In short, a man should liberate the woman in himself. Yet women's liberation should not mean women becoming like men. Masculinity in its present form needs to be questioned. To create greater understanding between the sexes, I directed an all-male beauty pageant called the Boy America Beauty Contest. In the competition, the boys were required to parade by in bathing suits while the women sat in the audience. The women were instructed to behave like men. Consequently, they whistled, stomped, and even yelled insults. This role reversal was beneficial to both sexes. The winner even went so far as to say that he could never again condone a women's beauty contest. Signed, Warren Farrell. And we'll start the controversy with a man who has often said that a woman's place is in the stove, Orson Bean.
Yes, in my old days of traveling with the carnival, I often worked with Albert Alberta, the half-man, half-woman. Had many serious raps. The last time I saw him, he took himself dancing, and that was the end of it. Number three, I've often wondered why women's lib didn't automatically include a men's lib. Do you feel that there should be a men's lib movement?
That's one of the reasons I wrote my book. I very definitely think so.
Number two, it seems to me that the women's movement places an undue emphasis on the economic factors, on work. In other words, the women should have the right to make the same kind of damn fools out of themselves that men have been doing for all these years. And instead of the guys dying 10 years early, the old lady running off to Miami laughing hideously with the boy from the A&P and spending his money, it should be the other way around. Make a question out of that and answer it, number
two. Number two, the picture of frustration. The buzzer came and takes us down to Peggy.
Wee-oh! Number three, why did these fellas the women all shout and yell? That's more like the way they'd act at a topless bar. My dear, the Miss America contest is as though the audience were in church. I don't see why they'd have to yell.
I think the basic difference is, in this kind of a situation, is that the women were really expressing the kind of thing that they experience when they walk down the street, rather than necessarily down the runway.
You know, I don't understand why people get sore when people give you a little whistle on the street. I think it's kind of nice. Shows you're still around. Number two, when you say men are emotionally bankrupt, don't you think that's rather a sweeping statement?
Well, one of the things that we find is that when women and men are sitting in a living room and their children are crying, they literally take a longer period of time to pick up their boy child than they do their girl child. And then we find that by the age of 13 months that the boy child actually is more emotionally restrained as a result of being talked to less, touched less, and held less.
All right, that takes us on, please, to Bill Cullen.
Now, staying with number two, and based on that answer, number two, that you just gave, wouldn't that in some way affect the boy child's masculinity, for want of a better term, in later life? If he gets the same coddling, for instance, that boy child is being conditioned to think goes only to girls.
Sure, it would affect his masculinity. He'd be much more emotionally secure.
I use the word masculine in the sense that we know masculine, number two, as far as emotional...
In the stereotyped way, no, but see, I feel that masculinity is really very highly related to anxiety, and that the more the more a person worries about trying to become a man or trying to become a woman, we find that they actually have a higher level of anxiety, which is one of the reasons that leads to more ulcers, more heart attacks, more migraine headaches, more attempted suicides, and more actual suicides.
Well, number one, I will move that question over to you. Now, forget masculinity. Maleness as opposed to femaleness, with apologies to anyone who objects to either of those terms. Are boys now too male?
Not really. I think they're becoming less so, and the roles that women and men play as they fuse together, the apparent roles, the way people appear to act, are fusing themselves too, and they appear the same.
And that buzzer takes us, please, to Kitty.
Well, number one, I agree with you that I think that Women's Lib has dislocated the relationship between men and women, and that's made it very hard, really, for both of them. But I was at one of those consciousness-raising beauty contests where there were men who were the beauty contestants. And the funny thing was, the men loved it. They had a fine time. They were enjoying themselves no end.
Well, that's true. They do. Normally they do, but on a number of occasions at other times, when the women became raucous, like the men became raucous or are known to be raucous, the men didn't enjoy it.
Yeah, well, I can understand that.
No, what you're saying is that the women in this case acted more like, I can't ask a question, acted more like men at a burlesque show rather than at a dignified Miss America beauty contest. But in any event, friends, it is time now for us to vote, and we have to vote for number 1, or for number 2, or for number 3. And Orson, we start with you, please.
Well, I was really torn. I'm not sure who it is. I voted for number 1. I was torn between 1 and 3 on a pedestal.
All right.
The way men should be.
We've got one show, and then we're going down to Peggy.
I think you're all very good, but I think Women's Lib has improved the relationship between men and women. That's my own personal opinion. I voted for 1. I always vote for the guy that wears the suit. They're usually the psychologist.
So we have a pair of 1s and Bill Cullen.
After the answer that number 2 gave to my question, I couldn't vote against that man no matter what. That was a right or wrong number 2. That was the greatest answer I've had in months.
And so will you go there. And Kitty, how you coming?
Well, I didn't get a chance to question them all, but I like number 1's answer. It was a little ambiguous, which is like a scientist.
Well, there we go. Almost a clean sweep by number 1 in the opinion of the panel, which is not necessarily the right answer, but let's find out. Well, votes are all in. Will the real Warren Farrell please stand up? Yep.
Good answer, number 2. I like that answer.
Thank you, Warren. We'll be seated. Let's find out about our friends. Number 1 with all the X's. What's your real name? What do you do?
My name is John Considine, and I'm self-employed.
Number 3, can you tell me about you, please?
I'm Don McAvoy. I'm the Vice President of the National Conference of Christians and Jews.
Oh, my. How nice. Great way to spend your life. Gentlemen, thank you very, very much for an interesting experience. Warren and friends.